Welcome to College Smart Radio, helping you understand the true cost of college and tackle the runaway costs of financing a college education. College Smart Radio is hosted by Mark Guthrie and Beatrice Schultz, founders of Westface College Planning. Now, your hosts for College Smart Radio, Mark Guthrie and Beatrice Schultz.
The typical high school senior is applying to 7 to 10 colleges, and some are applying to more. But how do they decide between public, private, Ivy League, small or large? Not all colleges are the same. Our guest on today's College Smart Radio program is Phil Betz, the Director of Admission at Monmouth College. He's joining us to talk about trends in admission and the difference between these many colleges. Hi, I'm Beatrice Schultz. I'm here in the studio on my own today. Mark's not able to join us this week, but welcome to our radio show, College Smart Radio, where we help you tackle the runaway costs of a college education. Our show is about bringing up-to-date and practical advice to parents who are dealing with the cost of a college education for their kids. With some private schools costing well over $60,000 a year, a UC costing $35,000, and a California State University running $25,000, parents need more help than ever. We bring you that help by sharing our expertise as college planning practitioners and by sharing the expertise of our distinguished guests who are thought leaders in the higher education arena. I'm a certified financial planner, and Mark and I are the owners of the San Carlos-based college financial planning business, Westface College Planning. We also help parents with their investment and retirement plans through Westface Financial Advisory, our registered investment advisory firm. In addition to our radio show, you can find lots of powerful information at our website, collegesmartradio.com. We have articles with up-to-date information on navigating the turbulent waters of college planning. We have links to our free community workshops and webinars, which teach parents and students how to efficiently pay for college. And you can sign up for our monthly e-newsletter, which is full of useful content. So let's get into today's show. Our guest on today's show is Phil Betz, and he's a director of admissions at Monmouth College, which is actually in Monmouth College, in Monmouth, Illinois. And Phil is joining us by a phone from Monmouth today. Hi, Phil. Welcome to College Smart Radio.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Hey, Phil, can you start by maybe give a little bit about your background and kind of how you ended up at Monmouth?
Sure. So like many people actually in the admission industry, I got my start as a tour guide when I was in college at Pacific Lutheran University in Tacoma, Washington. And I became very interested in that when I was a student, and all these different students from all the colleges I was considering who were taking me out on tours and so excited to talk about their college. And I knew that no matter where I went, I wanted to do that same thing. So when I got to college, I was a student tour guide. I helped call students in the evening as well as one of the student calling team members. And I graduated from Pacific Lutheran with a degree in education and actually relocated to California and taught high school for a year there, world history, and enjoyed that. But I was missing the college atmosphere. So I returned back to my alma mater and worked in admissions for a few years there. Pursued an MBA, actually had a little foray into the financial advising and consulting world before I returned back to admissions at Pacific Lutheran, and ultimately ended up out here in Illinois as a director of admission through some networking within the admission industry, and have been out here now for 2 years.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and I'm excited to have you as kind of an expert on the whole college admission process. And we talked a little bit before the show, and I'm hoping you can share with us sort of your observations on national trends in admissions and higher education. I mean, what's going on in the admissions side of college?
Sure. So there are a lot of things, and unfortunately, I think that a lot of the stuff in the media right now is a little bit on the negative side. So highlighting some of the students, especially in terms of cost, which I think is one of those large things, are finding those students with $100,000 worth of debt and all this money that they've borrowed to be able to finance a college education, and those are really outliers. And we in the higher ed world have to do a better job of getting out there and telling the general population that these are very rare occurrences. That if a student really just sticks to, if they have to take out a loan and they just stick to their federal loans that they've been offered, they won't graduate with more than $30,000 worth of debt. These are students who are probably ill-advised, ill-coached, perhaps encouraged by certain institutions to pursue some of these loans.
I think that's a really great perspective, and we've talked a lot about debt on our show, and I think a big part about it is, you don't go and buy yourself a Mercedes for $100,000 if you can't afford it. So you kind of should be planning. You might buy yourself a $15,000 car and have to take on a little bit of debt to do that, but you aren't going to buy yourself the $100,000 car if it's out of your range. So the proper planning and not expectations that we can all just go wherever we want and buy whatever car we want and go to any college we want and not worry about what it costs is just not realistic. So I'm glad you brought that up as a good perspective.
You're right. And at open house events, when we have maybe 50, 100 people in a room and many parents, I like to ask them to raise their hand if they have a college education. And then I ask, keep your hand up if you took out student loans. And, most of the room keeps their hand up, even there may be a younger generation of parents. And then I ask them, how many of you drive a car, have a job, eat 3 square meals a day, have a place to live? And most of them keep their hands up. And I say, see, debt didn't cripple you. It was you took out debt wisely. You made the investment, and it's paid off for you. Teach your students the same thing, and they'll be as responsible as you have with that process.
Yeah, I think it's a good message because I think that's a great message. So I'm glad that's what you're sharing. So you're finding, like I'm finding, that a lot of parents are just concerned about that, or is it that the expectations of kids that they can just kind of go anywhere they want and they end up applying to the wrong schools? I mean, what do you think about that, kind of why it's happening?
Yeah, there is. Students are being pushed in many directions by their parents, by guidance counselors, by teachers, by maybe siblings, cousins, or anybody else who's gone to a college. And most of them do it out of the goodness of their hearts, and they want the student to either go to the place they attended or they want them to go to a place that maybe is perceived as more selective or more prestigious because they have that chance to, they have that ability. So, of course, if a place is more prestigious, that's where you should apply. But typically, with that comes a higher cost, and so ultimately that might not be a right fit. But also, just because you have great grades doesn't mean you need to go to an Ivy League caliber school, because that might not be the ideal place for you in the long run.
So when you think about kind of trends in admission, I started by talking about the fact that the average students applying for 7 to 10 colleges, and I hate to admit that I know some kids that have applied to over 20 and kind of had to do their FAFSA more than twice. What are you seeing and what do you see when you're talking kind of to the other people in higher ed about the whole applications and how students are applying and how admissions is managing all these applications?
Sure. So we've become much more automated. So there's been a lot of investment in technology on our end to help process this influx of applications. Things like the Common Application and its proliferation have really helped students to apply to a lot more colleges easily without
and just to explain to some of our audience that may not yet have kids in college, the Common App is one application that you complete, and all those answers go to multiple colleges, and then you list the colleges. Is that pretty much the explanation for it?
Pretty much, yeah. And so the colleges have to agree to be on them, and they have to require the same minimum level of responses from the students, so essays, letters of recommendation, same type of application, and then that will go to all schools as opposed to having to do that individually for a lot of different places. Okay,
so the barrier to apply to multiple colleges through the Common App is just the cost of the application, or will some colleges also say, in addition, we need an extra A or something like that?
Some colleges do ask for supplemental materials. They ask it to maybe answer a question that's specifically related to that college or university. Some do still charge fees. There are many colleges now, though, in order to generate more applications, waive fees, so actually make the application free for students to apply, which has also contributed to the increased number of students applying to colleges. And it's just cheaper now to actually host an application online, whereas before we used to have to print out copies, mail them out to students, and have them come back, and there was a lot more processing, where now it's much more automated with new technologies.
So when you talk about your new technologies, it's the kind of process of having to manage getting the application information, but is there also technology to try and screen all those applications that come in your door?
That's really not much different because the screening components really would have just been GPA and test score at that point. The qualitative things, I don't know of any colleges that maybe are using some special like Google tool, for example, to analyze essays and say these are better essays than others.
Right.
I still think that most are sitting down and reading them.
So do you notice, so just on an overall, because we're going to talk a little bit about small colleges today, or smaller colleges that you represent, but are you finding in the smaller colleges you're having more applications overall, or it's the same? I mean, do you feel like there's a different trend in public, large private, small private colleges?
Many small colleges, although you do hear some of the stories about those who are struggling, actually over the last 5 to 8 years, really with the boom in the economy, in 2005, 2006, students started applying to a lot more, but there were also a lot more high school graduates during that time, and that number within the country has tapered off here. So we might see a little bit of a plateauing effect with the number of applications at many private schools. But private schools are really the predominant player on the Common Application, which has helped them to generate more applications. And the demand for higher education is just so high right now that students are seeing that they have many choices, and so are applying to these 7 to 10 colleges, sometimes 20, just to see what kind of options they do have out there.
And do you think the internal admission decision process is different with these different colleges, or is they pretty much all using the same process to decide who they want?
They are different. So it's really up to a student to do that research up front. Some have early action, early decision, and these are loosely binding agreements. So if a student applies early decision, early action, the college that has that in place asks that student, if they are accepted, to stop applying to all other colleges and basically commit to the school then. And that's usually in December, January, so it's pretty when those notifications will go out. So it's pretty early in the process. But many other schools, including Monmouth, practice more of what's called rolling admission, and that is that we review applications right away. So basically September 1st is when we start, and we'll review it, and once we're done, we notify a student that they've been admitted, and we'll do that throughout the year without really any hard deadlines.
Hey, Phil, I want to take a quick break here. If you just joined us, our guest on today's College Smart Radio program is Phil Betz, the Director of Admission at Monmouth College. And when we come back after the break, we're going to talk a little bit more about more about Monmouth and also about the small private colleges. You're with us on College Smart Radio.
College Smart Radio with Mark Guthrie and Beatrice Schultz continues in moments on AM 1220 KDOW. For more information on today's topic, visit collegesmartradio.com or call area code 650-587-1559. Contact our hosts at collegesmartradio.com or call 650-587-1559. Now back to College Smart Radio with Mark Guthrie and Beatrice Schultz on AM 1220 KDOW.
Welcome back to College Smart Radio, where we help you tackle the runaway costs of college. I'm Beatrice Schultz. We all know that college is expensive and will most likely be some of the most costly years for a family. Understanding how to navigate the college costs is a smart thing to know. To help families be on this radio show, we host community workshops live and via webinar several times a month that explain the costs of various colleges, how the financial aid system works, and things to consider to prepare yourself for this tremendous expense. To learn more and reserve your seat, go to our website, collegesmartradio.com. If you've just joined us, we've been talking with our guest, Phil Betz, the Director of Admission at Monmouth College, about college and about the different choices that you have. And Monmouth is a smaller private college based in Illinois. And so we've talked a little bit in general about admissions for college, but I'm hoping in the second half of the show we'll talk a little bit more specifically about why your student may be interested in thinking about some of these smaller private colleges that may be a little lesser known, at least to kids out here in California. Hi, Phil. Welcome back to the show.
Hi, thanks.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that. You talked about something special, which I think is special, the rolling admissions process, because kids are excited about hearing that they've been accepted into colleges along the way, and not necessarily having this early decision, early action, or everyone gets their offer on March 25th kind of drama, I guess I should say, to college. So that's kind of funny that you mentioned that as one of the items, but I think it can be so stressful when students are applying to Ivy League. So let's talk a little bit more about why students should be considering some small private colleges, of which, first of all, how many are there?
There are hundreds of them.
Yeah.
That are, sometimes you'll hear them called liberal arts colleges. Some are just small private comprehensive universities that look a lot like your public colleges, but still have 2,000-3,000 students at them, so still keeping that small population and that small community feel.
And so let's talk about, so small community feel. I mean, why would you say that students should be really kind of thinking, and what should they look at when they're looking at maybe the smaller college? What's a fit for them? I mean, what are the criteria that they should be looking at to make sure it's going to be a fit? Because if it's smaller, one of the things is they want to make sure the way the college works with how they think.
Sure. So at most of these small private colleges and universities in the country, you're really not going to have the chance to be a passive learner. The classrooms are typically small, average class size generally under 20, just like here at Monmouth, 12-to-1 student-to-faculty ratio here at Monmouth College as well, and those are pretty similar at a lot of the other private colleges. So when you're in the classroom, you're going to be noticed. Your classmates will know when you are there. They'll know when you're not there.
And how many students would be in a typical state school? I don't know if you know the California schools. You spent some time out in California, but if you went to California State University, Chico, how many kids would be in every class? Or you don't have to use that as an example, but just in general.
Yeah, in some of those bigger schools, their average class sizes will be generally over 25, 35, somewhere in there. But where they, averages are always a little weird to calculate. But some of the big keys are in those first year, going to an auditorium where you have 300 students in an introductory level biology class versus 20 or 30 at some of these smaller private schools. And students really need a strong head start when they start off in college. And that's often when you're in a smaller classroom setting and you do get noticed and faculty member are willing to work with you, you get to know most of your classmates within that class. You often will do, or a wider range of students will do better in that class, not just those who are probably already destined to do well, get A's and B's in the course, but you might get some students who might be struggling in a 300 or 400 level or 400 population of a class who come to a smaller private school and they do just fine because of the opportunity to access their professor, work more one-on-one, and get to know their classmates a little bit better.
And how about access to classes? We talk about the public system in California. Often families are worried that the kids won't get all the classes they need to graduate in 4 years, or they won't have the help to make sure they take the right classes. Typically a lot of these private, smaller schools in every level are more personal with the student. Is that what you would agree?
Correct. Yeah, we are not. Hamstrung by these limited resources coming out of state governments where we're getting more students, but we have less space for them or less resources to provide. So all of Monmouth's majors, at least, are around a 4-year graduation. That's how they're built. So you start off your freshman year, and you will get the courses you need guaranteed to be able to pursue your 4-year degree. And that's how most small private colleges are structured, is they let you come in, let you explore some majors, they let you explore your general education curriculum, some electives, so that you can help to discover what it is maybe you want to study, because high schools are so limited. They don't have this wide array of majors and minors that most colleges offer, so it sometimes takes a semester or 2 or 3 to figure out what it is you might want to do. And those programs at places like Monmouth are built to be done in 4 years. There isn't this waiting list culture in all of the courses where you have to hope and pray that you'll get into the classes you need every semester to get through your major.
Well, let's talk a little bit about cost, which we talk about on the show a lot, and also the kind of eligibility for financial aid. Can you talk a little bit about Monmouth and maybe also about, in general, the smaller private colleges? How does the financial aid system work?
Sure. So a lot of people get what we call sticker shock when they look at private colleges. They'll see that For example, we cost right around $41,000 a year for tuition, room, and board. And then they'll look at the Illinois state schools that cost $23,000, $24,000 also for tuition, room, and board, and just come to the conclusion, well, if they're cheaper, that's where I'm going. But there's really two types of aid that Monmouth College offers and many other private colleges offer, and that's need-based and merit-based. So I'll start with the merit-based aid. This comes in many forms. The first and foremost is academic merit-based aid. And here at Monmouth, those scholarships actually ranged up to $17,000 per year for all 4 years if a student was awarded that. And we look at GPA, we look at high school grade trends, we look at the type of high school you attended, the types of courses that a student took, so giving some extra weight to honors courses, advanced placement courses, IB classes, and things like that. We look at test score, essay, conversations that we've had with students and how we think that they'll contribute academically to the college. But then we also offer scholarships in terms of for merit in areas of music, theater, art. We actually have a history of bagpipes here on campus as a Scottish college. So we have a pipe band, so we offer scholarships for those who can play the drums or the bagpipes here on campus. And many of these other private colleges do that as well. So that's merit-based aid, and that typically makes up the vast majority of a student's financial aid award with us. But just like the state schools, we also offer need-based aid. So a student who received a Pell Grant from the federal government or maybe received a state-based need grant can use those grants towards an education at a private college. And then Monmouth College also offers need-based aid from our alumni, friends of the college have provided for students who have demonstrated need in order to pay for an education like at Monmouth. And after considering all the merit and need-based aid that a student may receive, many of our students find that the cost of Monmouth is comparable to some of the public schools that they're considering.
And I think that your example is probably pretty accurate, because if it's $41,000 for Monmouth, if you go to a University of California school in California and you live in California, you're going to pay $35,000, and a state school is going to be about $25,000. So if you can get some merit scholarship, you can pay less than a UC and maybe a little bit more than a state school, but with a little bit more comfort that you're going to be able to graduate in 4 years. I think that's really very valuable, and in fact is a lot of when I do talk to families, I try to introduce them. So we've only got about a minute left to go, but how do students research? I know they can go directly to the Monmouth site, but how do they just in general find out information about which of these so many smaller liberal arts colleges or private colleges? What's the way to kind of find out what colleges may be a fit for them?
Sure. So look online for sure. Do a lot of that exploring. Respond to the mailings that are sent to you. Actually open that mail, peruse it, find the college search areas on the website that will help you maybe find a good match. But I'm also pretty old school, and if we call you, pick up the phone and talk to us. A lot of private colleges do that, but don't be afraid to just pick up the college. Say, hey, you know what, this Monmouth College looks interesting. I'm going to call their admission office. We're more than happy to have a phone conversation with you. We can guide you through the website, through the application process. We really act as advocates for applicants to Monmouth College.
Oh, thank you so much, Phil, for joining us today on College Smart Radio. Really appreciate that you joined us on the show.
Sure, no problem. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks. Well, that wraps up another College Smart Radio show. We hope you picked up some new information today that helps you figure out ways to help manage the runaway costs of college. For a link to a podcast of this show and all our prior shows, go to our website, collegesmartradio.com. Also plan on joining us at one of the upcoming West Face College Planning workshops or webinars. This is Beatrice Schultz. Thanks for joining us on College Smart Radio.
You've been listening to College Smart Radio with Mark Guthrie and Beatrice Schultz. If you have questions on today's topic, log on to collegesmartradio.com or call area code 650-587-1559. That's 650-587-1559. And join us next week at this time for another edition of College Smart Radio on AM 1220 KDOW.
Information presented during today's show is not to be construed as advice meeting the particular needs of any investor. All mention of performance is based on historical experience. It should not be assumed that past performance is any indication of future results. Tax Center legal advice is not offered by Mark Guthrie or Beatrice Schultz. Please consult your tax professional for additional guidance regarding tax-related matters. Mark Guthrie and Beatrice Schultz are owners and investor advisor representatives of Westface Financial Advisory. College planning services offered through Westface College Planning. Insurance services offered through Westface Financial and Insurance Services. License number OF 35251. Financial planning and investment advisory services offered through Westface Financial Advisory.